Welcome, everybody, to State of Hoops, a South Dakota basketball podcast, episode 2. I am co-host Todd Schlekeway, along with my fellow co-host Nate Malchow. How are you doing today, Chow?
Doing good, Schleck. Great to be here, and we are in October, so basketball is right around the corner.
What an exciting time. You know, the youth club programs are starting their meetings and practices. The college programs in South Dakota, NAIA Division II, Division I, are all starting practices. The NAIA programs, the Dakota Wesleyans, Mount Marty's, Dakota States of the world, they actually have games at the end of October, Chow. So we are here. Basketball season is upon us. How does that make you feel?
Love it. You get out outside, and the air is getting a little cooler, and we still have fall activities in full swing and full play, and we have some that are winding down, some that are getting into their postseason, some that are done actually as well too. So this is a month where you see some transition at the high school level into those winter activities. I know winter coaches are gearing up a little bit more. Those that just coach a winter sport, September is pretty quiet for them in terms of their activity, and maybe gearing up with some open gyms and open courts. But yeah, it's right around the corner. They're starting to put their plans in. What are they going to do in practice? Looking at maybe some possibilities with the personnel that they have and scheme and all of that, and ready for official practices at the high school level to start in November. College, like you said, Schleck, it's going. College seems to start earlier and earlier all the time. And NBA, the pros, the exhibition games are going on. So it seems like the NBA is a 12-month deal now with everything. Colleges are kicking in, and then the high schools will come in.
Yeah, a quick story, Chow. I was out at the state AA boys golf tournament in Rapid City. Some of your colleagues who are ADs out in Rapid did a great job running that event. My wife and I went out to watch my oldest son golf, and it actually turned into a lot of basketball conversation on the golf course. There are quite a few basketball coaches in the state who coach golf in the fall, and so I had some good conversations with coaches like Adam Dannenbring, the head girls coach at Rapid City Stevens, Mitch Bagaman, the boys basketball coach at Sioux Falls Roosevelt, Tim Reck, the basketball coach at Sioux Falls Jefferson, the boys coach, and Taro Fujimoto. I mean, I had a grad school class with him. He's an assistant boys coach at Harrisburg, and I'm missing some. Riker Kreitzfeld from Mitchell was there. It kind of got me excited that, look, here's a fall season that's wrapping up, but we have coaches gearing up for the season. And I had some good conversations with those coaches I just mentioned, and also some good feedback on the podcast. So that was good to hear. There's excitement brewing for the upcoming season.
Yeah, and what you see there too, Schleck, is camaraderie amongst the coaches. I think that's something special that you have generally in coaching. You see that here in South Dakota. I've lived it. I see it in my position as an AD now, but the coaches have a unique position in their job, and working with kids, and staying very busy and grinding things out during the season, because the practices, the games, it just becomes a very busy time. Most of them are also teaching full time too. You have some maybe that aren't teaching, but most of them are teaching as well. So I think that what comes of that is a camaraderie amongst that group, knowing what they go through during a season, what they go through with their families during a season, and everything too. We're lucky. I know I can speak for South Dakota that we have a lot of coaches that have a very positive fraternity and work together, and communicate well together, and a pretty close group.
Yeah, and I saw that play out firsthand. And so it was a fun trip for my wife and I to go out there and visit with all those coaches. But transitioning into the A topic, Nate, how do we not start with the coaching clash in the WNBA Finals that just concluded between Becky Hammon and the Las Vegas Aces and Nate Tibbetts of the Phoenix Mercury? The Aces 1-4. But beyond that, Nate, what's the significance of that to South Dakota in your mind?
Well, I think this is one of the biggest moments in basketball. Kind of gets, when you're at a busy time right now in the fall, and you still have the NFL, and you still have some things going on. Here we are in South Dakota producing two head coaches that are playing each other in the WNBA Finals. That's historic in itself. The other piece of that is that you have two that are all pretty much the same age. I mean, one's class of 1995, Becky Hammon from Rapid City Stevens, Nate Tibbetts, 1996 from Sioux Falls, Roosevelt. So what an honor as a South Dakota sports fan to be able to see both of those lead their teams at the professional level into the finals, and we know the popularity of the WNBA is on the rise. There's a lot of interest there in that league, and to see two of our own get to that level and work as hard as they have to attain those positions, then to have success and lead them to the finals. It's amazing, and I think it's just a feather in the cap that all something that all South Dakota hoops fans can be proud of.
Yeah, well said, Chow. It's interesting because both of them coach at a very high level in the NBA. Both received an opportunity to be a head coach in the WNBA, and the W is much better for that, having those two on the sidelines as head coaches. But we talked a little bit in episode 1, Nate, about our connection to the Tibbetts family and to Nate especially. I mean, it goes way, way back. Um, I think it's a good time to reminisce a little bit about our days. He was our AAU teammate for Team South Dakota in high school, but we played in a state amateur basketball tournament with Nate, and he was the ultimate floor general as a player, as a point guard. And so I am not surprised in the least that his leadership ability and how he was as a point guard, as a player, has translated to success, at the highest levels of his sport on the sidelines. So talk a little bit about your recollection being a teammate and a peer with Nate.
Well, I just remember starting playing AAU basketball with Nate back in 1994, playing for a South Dakota team, which both of you and I were on, and Nate Tibbetts, Nate White, John Sevesend, Josh Thorpe, Shannon Poppinga, Jeremy Kudera, Chris Jansen. I mean, some names that will ring a bell to our viewers here. As you said, Schleck, he is the ultimate, as a player, he was the ultimate floor general. I don't know that I have played with somebody in my high school years, my college years, my amateur years that was going to get you the ball in a position to score. And encourage you and be positive with you. The ability to get after people in a positive way, where he was just a pure leader and people followed him. A specific story I can give you is we were at the University of Nebraska for a team camp. Back in the day, AAU teams could go there and kind of prep for their summers and everything. And it was probably our first time playing together. And Nate just came to me and he said, "Chow, I want you to run with me. When I get the ball in transition in the full court, you run and you get your hands ready. Just put them right here and I will get you the ball." Well, I had never really heard that before. So here I am. I got one of the parts right, Schleck. I ran with him, but I didn't get my hands in the right spot. And that ball came square right off the beak on that. Nate looked at me and he said, "I told you so, Chow." Yeah, you did. So I figured that out pretty quick that when you're running with Nate and you're a teammate with him, you better be ready to catch the ball, but he's going to put it in the right spot for you. And love that piece about playing with him. I think you see a lot of those characteristics carry into his coaching career. When he was starting at the University of Sioux Falls, he was an assistant with Shane Murphy, I think, when he first got started there, and then graduated up, worked a little bit with the Skyforce and on into the league, the NBA and the WNBA. A lot of those core characteristics of Nate that I saw back when we used to play with him, he's been very true to that. And in terms of being able to get a group of people together, to rally them, to get them to play together, to do it in a positive way. And Nate's he's coaching at one of the highest levels right now, but he's always been a South Dakota guy at heart, and has maintained his friendships around here, and just a good coach, a great guy. I would say a great coach and a great guy, and doesn't surprise me with him carrying all those traits and having a successful coaching career. And kudos to him. Awesome to see him doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I just loved playing with Nate, whether it was AAU or later on in our short-lived amateur career. The one thing as a shooter, Chow, I think my shooting percentage always went up when I played with Nate because there was no wasted motion. You would come off a screen and that ball was right there in your hands where you could catch and shoot quickly. And he just had that that natural ability to get you the ball, that sixth sense to get you the ball when you could score in rhythm. So I love playing with them.
Nate has made in his basketball career and his coaching career, he has made those around him better. And I think that's one of the best compliments that you can give a leader, regardless of profession. He's that type of guy. He's made people around him better at all levels of playing and of coaching. Going back, Schleck, I wouldn't know because I wasn't a shooter on the team, but who was setting screens for everybody? That was me. So the screen is set first, and then you got the ball in the right spot to score. So, but no, great to see Nate having success. Awesome, great guy, great family, and go Nate.
Transitioning to Becky Hammon, widely regarded as the greatest girls basketball player ever to come out of South Dakota. Uh, at the time, she was a year older than you and I, Nate, class of 95. But remember, girls basketball was played in the fall and there was no social media. The hype train wasn't near what it would have been in today's age. My wife, Jill, was on the Mitchell team that went undefeated and had the all-time classic game with Becky Hammon in the state AA girls basketball tournament in the semifinal round. And it happened to be played, Chow, get this, at the Corn Palace. And so
Yes.
that is the famous game where Becky scored 29 of Rapid City Stevens' 35 points. 4 of the remaining 6 were her assists, and then there was 2 free throws made by another player. So one of the all-time great games in South Dakota girls basketball history. I asked my wife, Jill, wanted to remind me that she did score 2 points off the bench as a sophomore in that game. I asked her what her memories were of that, and she just said she remembers the home court advantage that the Mitchell Colonels had for a state tournament, and they needed everything just to get past Becky Hammon. She was that special. And of course, that's the game where Aaron Olson hits a walk-off. She goes the length of the court in 6 seconds, hits a walk-off shot, and Mitchell wins 36-35. But one of the all-time classics, and my wife still likes to tell everyone that she played against Becky Hammon in high school. What a legacy she left. And she's breaking ceilings at the next level now with her career.
Yeah, and I remember watching that game on TV. Wasn't at the actual game, but watched that on TV, and I remember the performance that Becky put on and scoring all those points and just being involved. I just remember watching that, and I was in high school at the time, just saying, "Man, I mean, this Hammond's got the ball in her hands all the time." I mean, it was almost like she was, if she wasn't scoring, like you said, she was getting assists. And then you have Olson with the walk off at the Palace, which was always a tough place to win. And one of the all-time classics and a great game. So look at 2 coaches in that game too. You had Ron Reichert, longtime Stevens coach, legendary coach out at Rapid City Stevens, and Gary Munson was the girls coach for Mitchell at that time too. Munson, known as being a longtime boys and girls basketball coach, winning all those state championships, and probably had to be one of the more exciting games that Munson has ever been a part of, boys or girls. And just a lot of history there. We know where Becky has taken that onto Colorado State, playing in the WNBA, coaching in the WNBA. Again, amazing. Hats off to Becky Hammon for what she's done, and congratulations to her on winning a title in the WNBA this season.
Yeah, as we transition, South Dakota's the big winner there, and we're very proud of both Nate Tibbetts and Becky Hammon for continuing to put South Dakota on the national, international map in their careers. You're listening to the State of Hoops podcast, and we're going to take this time to acknowledge several of our sponsors. Charles Schwab, looking for trusted financial guidance close to home? Visit Charles Schwab's Sioux Falls, South Dakota branch, your local investment firm. Led by Lonnie Struckman and Zach Hansen, financial consultants with over 25 years of combined experience, their team is here to help you reach your financial goals. Whether you're planning, investing, or just have questions, Lonnie, Zach, and their team put clients first every time. Call 605-231-4844 or search Schwab Sioux Falls at schwab.com to book your appointment today. Charles Schwab, own your tomorrow.
Again, thanks to Charles Schwab. I also want to take a moment to thank the team at Insight. They're the folks who helped us with the visual assets to bring this podcast to life. And I can tell you, they don't just make things look good. They dive in, ask the right questions, and come back with great ideas that actually work. Whether it's branding, campaigns, or creative strategy, Insight has a way of helping businesses stand out and connect with people in meaningful ways. If you're looking for a partner to make an impact on your business, check them out at insightmarketingdesign.com.
Give and go.
Well, now it's time for our give and go segment. And again, for those of you just tuning in, we have a segment we like to call Give and Go. It's a quick hitter topic that Nate and I or our guests are going to have just some quick conversation on. And Nate, I want to cover this topic now because we're in the fall. It's volleyball season. And there's been a lot of talk on some of the South Dakota sports media sites, sports radio news about the impact of club volleyball, the rise of club volleyball in South Dakota and what it is doing or may potentially do to girls basketball participation numbers in the state. And the reason I wanted to pose the question to you, Nate, is number one, you're an activities director at one of the largest high schools in the state, Washington High. You won 3 state titles as a head girls basketball coach at Washington High. But what some of the listeners may not know is you have 2 daughters, Macy, who's a collegiate volleyball player now at Gustavus Adolphus, and Katie, who is a high-level club volleyball player. Both of your daughters have played club volleyball. You know that scene well. What are some of your thoughts on that? I think this is an interesting topic for us to kind of converse upon.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of both through the years. Still trying to figure out all the rules in volleyball. I always joke with our coaches at Washington and people in the volleyball scene about that. But I think in our area here, Schlek, the popularity of volleyball is here to stay. It's no secret when you go to tournaments, you have the clubs and the training facilities. When you have all the off-season work that's going into that, that has really come to life probably in the last 10 to 12 years in this area. And because of that, we have a significant amount of girls that are playing volleyball and being involved in the sport. Basketball has also evolved in the club scenes in the last 10 or 12 years as well. That has picked up some steam with girls playing and having opportunities to be on teams as well. I do think that you see with some numbers now that there is a degree of specialization in sports. I know that's a topic and a word that gets used all the time, but it's real. And there are a lot of kids that are choosing, and it's not only volleyball and basketball, it's other sports that are impacted by it as well. But since we are in the middle of a fall season with volleyball, very, very popular. The teams that are coming to play us at the AA level, they're filling all 5 levels of their squads. And the 5 levels for the listeners: varsity, JV, sophomore, freshman A team, freshman B team. The reality of it is that in girls basketball, we don't see that a lot of the time where we're having 5 levels filled in that sport. And it's a numbers game that as a basketball community, we have to continue to work on and get our young kids, our young girls specifically, interested in playing at a young age, give them a positive experience so they appreciate the game, and get them fired up to continue to play throughout their high school years. I think it's a well-documented fact that there are more girls playing volleyball right now than basketball. Volleyball is just, it's taken that upswing. I think a lot of that has to do with the popularity of the game. You see it a lot more, especially this year at Schlek. I mean, I could turn on ABC on the weekends or ESPN, and there's a high-level college volleyball match that's going on. And 3 hours away at Nebraska, they're packing a football stadium, 2-3 years ago for everybody to come and watch volleyball. So nationally, very popular regionally with the success of our teams in the region. Even more.
Yeah, really well said, Nate. I started thinking, is this just a Sioux Falls metro area issue, or is this truly a statewide issue? And I did pose the question I mentioned earlier. I talked to Adam Dannenbring, the head girls basketball coach at Rapid City Stevens, at the state golf meet last week. And I asked Adam, and he said in Rapid City, that area, it's definitely had an impact as well. And South Dakota is a unique demographic state anyway, Chow. We see that in athletics. So wanted to get your take on that. I think your perspective is valued, and our listeners certainly would be interested in hearing your perspective. So I guess we would just like to open it up to our fans and listeners. Let us know. Shoot us an email at stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com or a direct message on X or Instagram, what you're seeing in your school's program in terms of girls numbers. What is the participation rate? It's something that we'd like to get more information on as we move forward. So feel free to engage with us on that topic. All right. I'd like to take this time to acknowledge several more sponsors. Looking for the ultimate basketball experience in the Black Hills? Look no further than Park Bench Athletics, your host for premier youth tournaments all winter long. Join Park Bench Apparel for epic events starting in December and going through April. With over 100 teams from South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Nebraska, and Colorado at each tournament, there is the perfect competition for any level. While you're out there, check out Mount Rushmore and the beautiful Black Hills, or hang out at the Watiki Indoor Water Park with your team when you're not playing. You can sign your youth basketball team up today at parkbenchapparel.com or find their tournaments on the Turning Machine app. Let the games begin.
Thanks again to Park Bench and Jason Henry for your sponsorship of the podcast. We'd also like to thank the Tiefenthaler Real Estate team with Hague Realtors. For over 30 years, Pat and Pam Tiefenthaler of Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors have been trusted names in and around the Sioux Falls community. Building relationships that last, they're humbled and honored to serve buyers and sellers with care and expertise. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or navigating a move because life happens, Pat and Pam will walk beside you, guiding you every step of the way. Call Pat or Pam at Tiefenthaler Homes with Hague Realtors today, your trusted partners in Sioux Falls. Visit tiefteam.hague.com. That is TIEFTEAM.HEGG.com, or call 605-321-0550.
All right, now we get to talk about South Dakota legends. Our listeners will likely recall in episode 1, as part of our Bleacher Preacher segment, we asked our listeners, our fans of the podcast, to submit their preferred list of legends they would like to see you and I bring on the podcast this season and subsequent seasons. And so I'm just going to read a few of the names. First of all, thank you for engaging with us. We received quite a few big name players, and that will definitely add these names to the list. But I'm just going to name a few, Chow. Eric Klein, Jess Hart, Becky Flynn, Macy Miller, Dana Nielsen, Jared Reiner, Bernal Glanzer, Noah Friedel, Eric Lappy, Josh Mueller, Willie White, George Bedeleon. Those are just a few names that our listeners submitted, and there's more. But it really has me excited to build out our content calendar moving forward when you hear names like that. What are your thoughts when you hear names like that?
That's a great, a very, very brief list, Schleck, in terms of the legends that have come out of South Dakota, but speaks to the lore and the respect. And we're just very, very thankful, Schleck said, that we were able to receive several dozen emails after that podcast with people engaging and giving us ideas, content, names, connections with certain people that are legends in our basketball community and have stood out and have done some great things, not only in their careers, but beyond that as well. So that's awesome. I love hearing those names. I've heard them for years, and we look forward to leading our podcast listeners and our viewership for a chance to meet some of these people. And I don't think we could be more excited to name our first legend that we are going to be interviewing here in the upcoming weeks. So, Schlek, I'll let you take it from there.
That was a teaser, as they say in the business, Chow. But yeah, we have some breaking news to deliver on this episode of State of Hoops podcast. We have secured the first iconic legend who will be our guest. We'll probably do the interview in November, release the episode in December, but I have a short video clip that we're going to queue up, and then we'll dive right in for this breaking news.
It's a great leap here, Jason Sutherland. That's highlight material right there, and boy, look at him celebrate on his way down. That's the exclamation point on what will probably be a state championship season for the Watertown Arrows.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. The one and only Jason Sutherland will be the first Legends Series episode guest on the State of Hoops podcast. I'm just going to open it up to you for your reaction, Nate.
Wow. I think if you were anywhere near a gym in the 90s, early 90s, you were either there to see it or you heard plenty of stories about Jason Sutherland. Been around basketball in this state for a long time as a kid, growing up, going to the gyms, watching players, being around the community as a player then, as a coach, as an AD. This is a name that still comes up to this day. Jason Sutherland was a legend in multiple sports. Obviously, we know the high school accolades that he had on the basketball court, multi-time all-state player, state champion for the Arrows, probably the best dunker that this state has ever seen. And we've had a lot of good ones, but 6 foot, and we're going to have some highlights to show our viewership here as well that we were able to secure through some connections up in Watertown. But he was a great player, went on to play for the University of Missouri, played for Norm Stewart, legendary coach there. But we're also talking other sports. I mean, in track, 7 foot high jumper, and Jason was probably 5'11" or 6 foot, all-state football player. Schlek, I think he was one of the top pole vaulters in track too. So just an all-around athlete. When Sutherland and the Arrows showed up in those gyms back in the 90s, the people were there. He packed them. He brought the crowds to the gym and played on some great teams. And we're going to take a step back in time with our listeners and discuss those times with Jason and talk about some of those memories and the memorable games, the memorable venues. He could maybe give us his favorite pep band song or two, because those were always blaring at that time. But couldn't be more excited. Absolute legend in South Dakota basketball.
So I was able to talk to Jason and explain what we want to accomplish with the podcast, that we want to honor him, the legacy he left in the state, and he was very humbled by it. He's living in Columbia, Missouri. He has his own business there, and his family lives still in Columbia, Missouri. He told me that looking back on the entirety of his athletic career, some of his fondest memories are still his time as a Watertown Arrow on the hardwood. You're talking about one of the most iconic basketball players and athletes our state's ever seen, probably the most exciting player in the modern era on the basketball court. Our goal is to honor his legacy. And also we want to educate the younger generations on his exploits and his greatness. If you're a younger high school or college player listening to our podcast, just go to YouTube and search Sutherland Dunk. And I know kids today like to put their highlights on Instagram, but this cat was different than unlike anything we've ever seen in the modern era. And I told Jason when I talked to him that people are still talking about this 32 years later. Not many athletes of any sport, of any generation in South Dakota history can you say that about, but you can say that about Jason Sutherland.
Best athlete, all-around athlete that I've seen come through South Dakota. There could be some great debate on that, but in terms of pure athletic ability. I mean, we're talking about a 7-foot high jumper here. I believe he was maybe listed at 6 foot, but there are people that say that he's probably closer to 5'11". But for those of you who haven't seen it, if you saw it in the 90s, you knew it. And you knew what the hype was about. And he is the best dunker I've ever seen in South Dakota, maybe one of the best ever that I've seen at any level. So we'll have some video to share as well, and very, very excited about this.
Yeah, we are so excited. And that's kind of a good segue for me to go into another sponsor ad. Jason Sutherland, one of the many Hall of Fames he's in is the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame. And we're fortunate enough to count them as a sponsor of our podcast. Love South Dakota hoops? Discover the legacy at the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving our state's rich basketball history for generations to come. Visit their incredible exhibits at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls and explore milestones and legends online at sdbbhof.com. From iconic players and coaches to unforgettable teams, this is South Dakota basketball. And again, check out their newly rebranded website at sdbbhof.com and be part of the tradition.
Bleacher Preachers!
Now it's time for our Bleacher Preacher segment. This is an opportunity, again, to engage our listeners on a question, a topic. We want you to email us at stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Send us direct messages on X and Instagram. But in honor of Jason Sutherland's upcoming appearance on the State of Hoops podcast, we want our audience to share some names with us on great basketball players who are also great multi-sport athletes in the state. So that is our Bleacher Preacher segment for episode 2. Who are some names that come to your mind when we talk about this, Chow? Great basketball players who also were elite in other sports in South Dakota.
I'll talk a little girls basketball first on this. I mean, you can go back to those great Roosevelt teams that where you had the 111 game winning streak led by Fred Tibbetts. You look at the multi-year starter and Ashley Peterson, who played basketball there. Ashley Buckley is her name now, but she played volleyball for a dominant program at Penn State. All-around athlete there, multi-sport, and there are so many in the girls game as well, too numerous that I'm not even thinking of right now. That's why we ask for the viewership's help in talking about not only our history of all-around athletes in both boys and girls basketball. I'll go old school with a little bit with our older listenership right here too. George Amundsen, Aberdeen Central, multi-sport, first-round draft pick in the NFL, but played basketball, football, and of course, one of the records that I don't think will ever be broken in South Dakota, the 211-foot discus toss right there. That's been a state record since 1969. Just examples of all-around athletes. Also have an example of an all-around athlete that Schlek came face-to-face with. Brock Lesnar. Schlek, former Webster, South Dakota legend, multi-sport in high school and football, wrestling, UFC, WWE, global superstar now. Tell us about your Brock Lesnar story.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Chow. It's one of my claims to fame is fall of 1995, the Mobridge Tigers are playing the Webster Bearcats in football. We're in the same conference, Northeast Conference for football. First game of the year, for senior year, the Bearcats roll into Mobridge. And of course, we had a really good team, but Brock is playing nose tackle, lined up. I'm quarterback, right over the center. And if you think he's a beast now, he was also a beast back then. He proceeded to hit me hard on many occasions, but he sacked me 5 times. So I have the distinction of being sacked in a high school football game by none other than WWE global superstar Brock Lesnar. That's my Brock Lesnar story, Chow.
Schlek, don't feel bad. I think think John Cena got sacked about 10 times a couple weeks ago when they were wrestling there too. But yeah, all starts in the Northeast Conference, man. So got to sack Schlek before he goes on to the UFC and the WWE and all that stuff. So had to bring that one up. It is fall. It's fall season. We're hoops, but we can talk a little bit about that, a little South Dakota history for Schlek. But hey, man, you got up, you still played. Rock on, man.
Love telling the story. Thanks for letting me tell it one more time here.
Show out, shout out.
All right. As we wrap up episode 2, it's time for our show out, shout out segment. Nate, who is your show out, shout out for this episode?
Schlek, I'm going to go with our high school sports writers that we have in our state, those that cover the high school game, whether it's basketball, other sports. Some names that come to mind. Dave Vilhauer with South Dakota Sports Scene. Matt Zimmer with Sioux Falls Live. Ryan Deal with 605 Sports. Nate Weck, Jason Endera with SDPB. In our current media situation where a lot of people don't have a daily news coverage of a daily newspaper, we just don't see it that much. These individuals are still dedicated to giving coverage to our high school girls and boys and giving them the attention, the stories, those things that these kids have worked so hard for. And these writers all have a passion to share that with everybody else and give their stories. So encourage you to check them out, and a shout out to those guys for all they do, and would consider all of them friends of the cast here too in supporting the story of our high school athletes.
Very well said. And we'll have a lot of those names that you just mentioned on the podcast as guests throughout the season and subsequent seasons. My show out, shout out, Chow, I'm going with a feel-good story. Kobe Sherman is my show out, shout out. For those of you who don't know the backstory, he was a young man who played basketball at Viber Curly. I think he played in the state tournament in 2023. And unfortunately had bone cancer. So he fought that, he battled that, but was unable to play basketball any longer. So Kobe started a foundation called the Midwest Miracles Foundation. They had a basketball classic last season in Hurley for varsity basketball teams, and it was a fundraiser for pediatric cancer funds for treatment and also for awareness. And they announced they were going to have the second annual classic early January of 2026 at the Corn Palace. So they're moving his classic from Hurley to the Corn Palace. And that'll obviously help raise more funds. But we want to use our podcast as a platform for good. And he's a young man. I know that you and I actually coached youth basketball against last year as well. So wanted to give Kobe a show out, shout out for what he's doing for kids with cancer, and just appreciate his story and his initiative to start this foundation.
Yeah, I'll back that up, Schlek, as well. Second that. Shout out to Kobe. He's got a platform that he's used in a positive way to help younger kids that are going through a similar situation that he had, but taking something that is life affecting right there, and using it as a positive to help others. Awesome story, Schlek. Second that 100%. Go Kobe.
And that's a good way to wrap up this edition of the State of Hoops podcast. We thank you, all of you, for listening. Again, a reminder that you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeartMedia, and Amazon Music podcast platforms. You can also follow the podcast on social media platforms, Instagram and X. And again, we encourage you to engage with us by emailing us at stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again to our sponsoring companies and organizations. And until next time, yours in hoops, Todd Schlekeway and Nate Malchow.